Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. Brought to you by Bell's, the home of inspired brewing and makers of Kalamazoo Stout. It's so good I think I'll have one as soon as we finish this show. I'm Dean Gemmel, and in this edition, we talked with Jim Waite, men's Olympic curling team coach. Hey, Jim, I want to thank you for being on the show first. I appreciate your time, and I know it's busy for you right now. But first of all, what's your official title?
Well, for the Olympics, it's national coach. Each team that goes to the Olympics from Canada must have a national coach attached to it. So that's what I'll be doing with the Gushue team.
Are you the coach for both the Gushue and the Clyburn team, or just the Gushue team?
No, just the Gushue team. Elaine Degg-Jackson works with the women's team, but we work together and back and forth because we all have different areas of knowledge and that we can bring to the team, so we help each other out.
Let's think about the coaching for a minute. I mean, how much coaching of this team do you actually do between now and Turin? I mean, how much coaching does Russ Howard take?
Well, that's a good point. And one of the things that we do is scout the teams. Like, we know the teams extremely well that have been playing in the last few years at the World Championships and also at the Olympics. So we'll be helping them with knowledge of the teams. We've been asked already to go out and do some work with the front-end players with Team Gushue just to make sure that their releases are the same as the rest of the boys on the team. So we'll be doing a little bit of work technically and a lot of work off ice.
And then how does someone like Toby McDonald fit in? I mean, on Gushue's team, he was probably one of the more involved, active coaches that we saw. So how does he fit into the process now?
Well, you're dead on there, and Toby's our go-to guy in Newfoundland. I've talked with him 10 times in the last 2.5 days. And he's the person who's coordinating all of the travel and that sort of thing for families and coordinating the media that are trying to get to Brad and Russ.
And then you act as a media filter as well? Or people come to you with requests? Or?
That's right. Anybody that comes to the teams or directly to the CCA for interviews go through us, and we try and screen them. And just so that they aren't bombarded every day, we might make Tuesday, for instance, media day and get all the calls to go at that time.
You know, like a lot of us before the week started in Halifax, I think you might have predicted a Martin Furby trial. Like a lot of people, that seemed like a safe pick. What are your thoughts on the Gushue team, and what do you think made the difference for them?
Well, it was a safe pick, and virtually everybody was surprised when neither Martin nor Furby were in that final grouping. But Gushue just seemed to come on with Russ in the picture. I think Russ brought a calm to that team. And when Brad went down to throw, I think he knew the broom was in the right spot and this was the right call. And then Mark Nichols stepped up and played an outstanding series of games and made some huge shots for that team. And so it was a combination of Russ providing the calm and those boys feeling confident in their deliveries with Russ holding the broom.
Yeah, I mean, it sure seemed to me that they were having one of those magic weeks. So I guess now the thing is for you is try to make sure that chemistry continues, right?
Yeah, but this isn't a fluke. Those guys can really play, and they've been around, and they've been close to winning the Brier, and so it's a quality team. And I'll tell you, nobody is more committed than Brad Gushue. Like, he's worked with a sports psychologist, and even when you heard him being interviewed on television, you could hear what he was saying came from a sports psychology background in that he could see the shot. He knew in his mind that he could make the shot, and so he is one committed guy and throws a ton of rocks as well. Yeah,
I think a lot of us probably missed the boat in not picking them to do well, to be honest, because I think I think they prove that they are a great team. So, I certainly expect them to do well in turn.
Yeah, and even Stoughton made the comment that you can't just throw somebody in there and expect them to be a great team, which all of those teams there were. But it just clicked. Russ brings that experience with him to three guys who are great young players, and it's a great combination. I think they'll do really well in Turin.
Yeah, and they seem to play fearlessly, which I think will help them, So, hey, one of the things that we talk a lot about with other curlers in the show is international play. And Russ, of course, has international play, and Gushue's rink has international play in junior. What's different about playing international teams?
Well, that's a real focus for not only the Canadian Curling Association, but Sport Canada as well, to get our players into the international fields. And even with the decisions that we've made in the last couple of days, the boys are going to go to the tour event in Winnipeg as a tune-up in early January. But they were very close to going back over to Scotland and playing over there at the same time. The problem was they conflicted with time. But it's just a matter of playing on different ices and playing with people that don't speak the same language you do, that call the game differently than you do, And the experience of playing against international teams is huge when you get to something like the Worlds or the Olympics.
Here's an issue I want to talk to you about. The trials was incredibly successful, and I think you'd probably agree with everyone else that it's now become the major focus of any competitive curler at this point, right?
Well, I think so, and not only the curlers, but the fans. Like, the fans came from everywhere to be there because they knew it was going to be the best curling they've ever seen. But definitely the players think this is the ultimate, getting to the Olympics, and so the trials becomes the step to get there.
With that in mind, has the CCA given any thought to how the success of the trials is going to dilute their biggest franchise, the Brier? I mean, I think that the success of the trials at some level is going to start to dilute that over time as we go forward. And I think it already has in some ways, and have they thought about that at all?
Well, it's the same thing with any world event as compared to Olympic event. Like, the Olympics is the ultimate. There's no question about that, but it's only every 4 years. And so the Brier becomes like the main thrust in the other years. But that happens in track and field and all the other sports that are ongoing annually, and then they have to deal with the Olympics every 4 years. No question, it's the biggest.
Do you think having Russ Howard on Gushue's team, not so much because he was a fifth man substitution, which I think is a non-issue, but I'm not saying this is an issue either. I think it's just going to change the way guys put teams together. If you look at Russ from New Brunswick, 3 guys from Newfoundland, most guys still put their teams together. The top teams, they put them together to play tour events and provincial playdowns to go to a Brier. And those are sort of the two focuses. And the Brier, has doled out a number of trial spots as well. But the teams are based on provincial jurisdictions, whereas at the trials, provincial jurisdictions don't really matter. So could you see a time when a team would say, well, our goal is the trials, to win the trials, go to the Olympic Games, and we'll play a lot of tour events, and I don't care if we have 2 guys from Manitoba and 1 guy from Ontario and 1 guy from New Brunswick. If that's the best team, let's put that team together, try to find a spot in the trials that way, and forget about playing in provincial playdowns in a Brier.
Well, I don't think that'll happen. I think the Brier still has that mystique about it because it's provincial. And the reason that it sells out every year, almost sells out every year, is because of the provincialism. Like, there's a little wee Prince Edward Island, has done extremely well in some cases. And here's Nova Scotia is dominating women's, through Colleen Jones. And so I think the fact that the provincial aspect of the Brier and the Hearts is there, it's important that remains if it's going to remain successful like it is now.
The event is so uniquely great and Canadian, but I think the provincial nature of it is great for the fans, but I think at some point the top players might wonder if it's all that valuable to them. I mean, I think of another sport like, say, pairs figure skating, where you wouldn't care if you were from the same province to go to the Olympic Games.
Yeah, I know. Curling's unique that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is maintained that, and when professionalism has come in all the other sports, we've been able to maintain the Brier and the Hearts aspect through each provincial team being sent. It is unique, and things may change, but right now the setup is pretty good.
I'd hate to see it change. I just think that I think change might be inevitable, and that some teams might just say, I want the trials and tour, and go from there, which maybe the Brier becomes just a different event. I mean, it becomes an event more for the fans, and maybe it's teams that aren't quite at A level yet are competing the Brier and use that as a stepping stone at some point. I'm not sure, but I think when you see teams that are mixed from other provinces, you might see guys think about it that way.
But, I think that the Tour and the CCA and their events have come together now, and they're trying to make a blend. If somebody wants to put anything they want together for the Tour events, they can do that.
Right.
And they can still play in the Tour events, and they're getting bigger and bigger. And so you may be able to still maintain the two.
Right.
So where put together what you want for the Tour events, but if you're going to play in the Brier, it's going to maintain a provincial aspect.
Sure.
And there's no reason, for instance, that somebody can't move. Lots of people do move, just to move into a different area where they can curl on a competitive team. John Morris went to Alberta and is successful out there from Ontario. And so there's a lot more of that, a lot moving around.
Right. I could just see an instance, with Pat Ryan not playing anymore. Maybe John Morris wanted to play with Pat Ryan's team, and they said, well, forget about playdowns. But, hey, you were a top competitive curler for many years in Ontario. Do you ever get just a bit envious when you see the opportunities guys have nowadays?
It's terrific. No, I'm not envious. I'm just so happy that it's come this far. But I'll tell you something, like, we were pretty good in our day, but there's no way that the curlers of my time could compete against these guys. Like, they are so good, and they work at it so hard in all the different areas, like the fitness level, nutrition. They're all aware of these things to make them a better player, and the sports psychology end of it. But the way they play today is just yards beyond where we ever played.
It really is extraordinary. I think the big change has been the runback shots. I think that's become the most exciting shot in curling.
It's amazing. Plus, the other thing is their weight control. Now, I know they're playing on perfect ice now with perfect rocks and that sort of thing, but you take a look at how many people came around guards and just locked on sides of rocks that were in the forefoot and that sort of thing so that they could set up angles for later on. And, that's what made Furby's team so great over the years, the way they play angles, but the positioning of the rocks they get out of their players, the skill level is extremely high.
Yeah, I mean, they make freezes look routine, which 20 years ago wasn't the case, so. Hey, we finished, Jim, with something we called the runback segment. We give you a topic, and you give me a thought on it in 1 to 3 words. All right?
Give it a try.
Best 3 teams other than Canada at the Olympics on the men's side.
Truelson, Lindholm, and Germany, Cap.
What about the women's side?
Norberg, no question, out of Sweden. Scotland will be interesting to see how they put theirs together. And the rest you can flip a coin.
I'm in the anybody but Great Britain camp right now. I really don't want to see them do well.
I know.
I don't like the formula at all. I'm in anybody but them.
Yeah, it's almost back to the way we tried it in 1988, trying to put some teams together. It's going to be interesting. Everybody's going to watch to see if this works.
The very blue Canadian Olympic team jackets.
They're travel jackets. It'll be all red when we get to Italy.
Russ Howard is flag bearer in Turin.
No chance.
How much Warren Hansen liked Christine Keshen's rolled-up sleeves in Halifax?
Didn't make her cut them off.
That's true, he didn't.
Down.
I was surprised. You must have been cringing, though. Hey, thanks for your time, Jim. I think a lot of people are envious of you and your job, but I know you're going to do a great job with these guys and have a great time in Turin.
Thanks, Dean. I'm really looking forward to working with his team. I've known Russ forever. We played against each other back in Ontario, and we've done a lot of work with the Gushue team when they were juniors and just coming out of juniors, so they'll be a treat to be with.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Right.
Bye-bye. That's Jim Waite on The Curling Show, brought to you by the inspired brewers at Bell's. Read about their beers, ales, porters, and stouts at bellsbeer.com. They won't help you become an Olympic athlete, but they will be great to have on hand when you're watching the curling in Turin. Thanks for listening.